Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, and this week I have a very special episode for you coming straight from Power Monkey Camp 17 out in the woods in Tennessee. We had a great roundtable discussion with some of our coaches and staff, and our campers were asking Q&As, and it was actually a very, very valuable session for us. Some things that we hadn't talked about topic-wise before, and some more in-depth conversations to have with our coaches and staff, which was really, really helpful, I think, not only for our campers, but also for us as coaches. The staff included Dawn Fletcher, owner and founder of Driven Mind Training, Jason Leydon, owner and founder of CrossFit Milford, as well as Conquer Athlete, Chris Hinshaw himself coming in from aerobic capacity, teaching our running station, along with Cheryl Haworth, three-time Olympian in Olympic weightlifting 2000, 2004, 2008, Olympic bronze medalist as well. And finally, my normal co-host, Chad Vaughn, two-time Olympian and founder of Vaughn Weightlifting. We think you guys will get a kick out of this one. Again, it's some topics that were coming directly from people like yourselves, people that might have attended camp, people that know the community well and wanted to get some more in-depth conversation going around some things that are particular to their own situations. I really enjoyed this one, and hopefully you guys do too. All right, we're going to get going here. So we are at Power Monkey Camp 17. We're going to be doing this podcast with a great panel, and for those of you just listening, we have our campers out here, and I'm going to ask some questions, go through some things about some technical pieces, some things about camp, what the week's been like, and then see if we have any Q&A from the campers themselves. But I think Jordan had requested a quick little rundown about how camp was started, so I'll try to keep this brief, especially for those of you who were at Campfire Story last night, heard a little piece of this. But camp, we're in our 9th year. Can't believe it's been running this long already, and we're at the end of the week now, so you guys have a full idea of what the entire week is all about. But myself and Shane, my business partner, who you've probably seen around camp throughout the week, more like a phantom rather than actually participating very much. 10 years ago, we met and had the idea for the ring thing, the ring training device that we have up on the ring station. And we shopped it around to a bunch of different equipment manufacturers, and a company called Power Monkey picked it up. They were established kind of mom and pop rig making shop down in Florida, and they started making our ring thing. And we eventually convinced them that we had some good ideas around the gymnastics side of things, and they became partners with us. And then we bought them out about close to 10 years ago now, I guess, around 2012, 2013. And then we started Power Monkey Camp spring of 2013 with the idea of trying to bring together some great minds on the education side in a camp setting. I've been coming to this facility for over 15 years, actually longer than that now, teaching kids in the summers. And I just love the facility. I love John and John, the owners, and we thought we could actually turn it into a great opportunity to bring adults out and relive some of their camp fantasies, and it's turned into something well beyond anything I ever imagined. And we always talk about like how many of these are we going to do, and as long as people keep showing up, we're going to keep coming back out as well. So as a quick little rundown, I can't believe it's been almost 10 years now, but let's get into some questions now. We're going to open up to you guys, and I think Lydia has the first question. So if you want to come up, Lydia, this is live, so you're going to have to come up here and ask the first question to the group.
As a former athlete, how do you deal with the expectations of skills that you used to have and you're struggling to continue to have them or like to get them again?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I'm interested to hear someone else's response. Lydia, that's fantastic. Thank you. Any else want to start there?
I'll start there. Yeah, thank you, Lydia, for the question. That's a great question, and it's an interesting thing, and one that I think I've probably been able to deal with better than most because I've kind of continued to lift and be able to have goals as a master athlete to try to win competitions and stuff like that. And so that's kind of what it has become about for me is, trying to do the best that I can at these competitions that I'm still able to compete at, and like let go of the numbers a little bit, because right now I can't deadlift what I used to clean and jerk. So that's an interesting realization to have. You go in there one day, I'm doing some deadlifts, and I'm like, wow, how did I ever even snatch this, to be honest with you? And I'm trying to deadlift it. So it's a little bit tough in that regard, but I think you just have to change your goals, and it teaches you a greater appreciation of the movement. So now I get joy, you know, more out of just moving and being able to execute what is a heavy snatch or clean and jerk for me, no matter what the weight is. And it takes, you know, gives me even more. I like to say I want my athletes to have freedom from the end result, so they're free to execute to the best of their ability, and it's giving me even more freedom from those results, and just allows me to really move and enjoy the movement and the competition.
You also have to remember that the body remembers through repetition. If you no longer practice, then the body forgets. And I've seen that many times. Dave Newman, if he was here, he would say that he was at a aerobic capacity seminar once with Sarah Sigmund's daughter, and I was doing single under jumps with a heavy rope, and she couldn't do it. She couldn't do a single under. It was so bad that she took her rope and she went to Dave and she said, there's something wrong. Not with me, but with the rope. All right? It's because she didn't practice. If you practice a skill, you've got to maintain contact with the skill or you forget.
Yeah, and I'm just to add on a little bit to what both these folks just said, I'm continually in awe of the level of adaptation that you know, we as athletes go through over a period of time. Like, I guess I trained full time for about 15 years, and the fact that I couldn't even approach deadlifting my best snatch right now. Like, not even close. And that happened, like, and I was snatching those numbers when I was a teenager. So it's really annoying, but it's also like, wow. But it also allows me to know for sure that all of you have a lot of potential just through repetition and time spent. And, you know, now I'm just trying to, like Chad said, just sort of execute good movement and find the joy. You know, I said last night that you all have so much joy for this journey, and that's why I'm here. So that's what it's all about for me, is just being fit and trying to get fit and being on my own fit journey, and also doing a little teaching along the way and just having a good time.
Yeah, you know, I actually have a funny story about this, because it's very hard for me to let go of that inside of the sport of basketball, which I played so long. And when COVID first hit, I used to challenge these 8th graders on my street and high school kids to basketball games. And my wife would come up and be like, why are you going so hard? Like, and I'm like, because I have to prove that I can still do what I used to be able to do. And then one day I went up for a dunk, and my hip still hurts from that about 2.5 years later. And that was kind of like the first thing, like, wow, I can't do the things that I used to be able to do all the time. And it was kind of like a mental shift into other things that bring me joy. And if I do go back to the sport, it's now so from a learning and teaching component and trying to help out those around me with the experience I had. But it's hard sometimes, you know.
So I got to tell you something funny. So on Jay, getting older, I never thought this would happen. But you know what limits me in my run workouts? When I gobble up road, meaning running fast, I can't process the road coming at me fast enough. And so I think I'm going to go into a pothole or something, which is incredible. That's my limiting factor, is that I can't process the information as it's coming in. Oldness is a bummer. It's coming.
Yeah, I would say, just to add on to some of this, is when I was transitioning from being a full-time athlete, coming out of college, doing triathlon, and it became clear to me that I wasn't going to be the type of athlete that I wanted to be to get that type of fulfillment, I started to put all of my energy into becoming the best coach possible. And that made it easier for me, because I knew I was going to still be able to make an impact and do something with all of that energy, but truly just started pouring it all into everybody else instead of my own personal pursuit.
You got another question?
How many of you have children who are following in your footsteps, and do you coach them personally, or do you prefer to have someone else coach them?
Jay, you want to start with this one?
I love this question. So I have 2 children. My son is 9 and my daughter's 11. And they are both heavily involved in their sports. And when they were really young, I told my wife that I would never coach anything, because I didn't want to be like that father And then I started seeing some of the coaches who coach youth sports, and now I literally coach every single thing that they do. You know, from softball to baseball to whatever. And it's hard. And my wife's really good at like dialing me in, because I can go down rabbit holes with stuff, you know. But I look at it as I want to be able to instill proper habits into them of hard work and effort, and just if you really want to be good at something, being able to go after it and what that looks like, you know, but still walking the line of father and coach and not being overbearing. And that's a very hard line to walk, but my wife's really good at keeping me accountable to that. But I get so much enjoyment out of it. Like, I love coaching their stuff and developing them and helping out with kids that are on the teams and doing all that stuff. So I do that.
Yeah, what a great question. I think I have a tremendous fear of coaching my daughter. She's 12, almost 13, because I messed up and tried too many times to coach my wife, Jody, and that just doesn't quite work out so well. She can coach me a little more than I can coach her, but luckily my wife, Jody's an incredible weightlifting coach, and so my daughter's gone to her weightlifting classes twice a week for a number of years now, and she's competing. But, you know, when she was really young, she's the one that crawled over to the bar, the PVC pipe, the first time and picked it up. We've never put a bar or PVC in her hand. It's something that she just did because she was around it, and she's taken to it. And she also does other sports now that we never really did, like skateboarding, and she's into basketball a whole lot as well. But yeah, weightlifting, she's talented. She's got the blood, obviously, and she'll be competing at Youth Nationals coming up here at the end of June and early part of July. But it's been amazing to watch her, one, be coached by my wife, and the development of her movement, her you can see when things click, and her understanding of the technique, you know, contacting her body for the first time, and it flies up over her head, and she gets it, you know. So that's been amazing, and to watch her compete has been certainly one of my proudest moments. She's a beast. She's a competition beast right now. So
Texas state champ, isn't she? Did she win states?
She's won quite a few medals. So she's 12 in the youth category. She kind of has to compete against 13 and under, and then there will be, I think, maybe 17 and under, 15 and under. But so she's been competing with athletes that are older than her right now. But she does have some in her weight class, Texas state records, and yeah, if she keeps going, I think she's gonna do a lot of good stuff. But it is an interesting fear that I have, or dynamic, to think about coaching her, and I'm just thankful that Jody is also a weightlifting coach, so I know she's getting good coaching, and I don't have to really worry about it. I can just be, she wants me there in the back room while she's warming up, and I can just be there for support and not worry about the coaching. So yeah, it's amazing to watch your kids.
If you haven't met Jody, she's a force. She's amazing. She was an amazing lifter herself, and she just commands the room. So I can see why you kind of like let her do her thing. But with my kids, you've seen them running around here all day. They do gymnastics, but I think I've already lost the battle. Alessia, who's probably over there at the desk, has already told me that she prefers weightlifting to gymnastics. So I don't know where I went wrong, but
See, you knew I was going to bring that up.
I tried to preemptively. I failed as a dad already within my first 5 years. Yeah.
So my kids are older, mid-20s, 28 and 30. The key for me, they're not doing anything that I'm doing at all. But for me, all I was doing was leading by example. I never pressured them to do anything. And we know that physiology like mine, it's genetics. It's handed down from parent to child. And like my son, when he was 11, I was just at the track, and he's like, what should I do? I want to run something. He's wearing skater shoes and went a 5:56 at 11. Never ran a day in his life. It hurt me that he didn't have any interest. They're all doing health and fitness, and in their mid-20s, which that's all I want. I want them to just be active. As we all know, that's the most important thing, staying active. Does it hurt me a little? Yeah, of course, but they're healthy. I get a lot of questions, just flipping the question a little bit. What should you do if you have young kids? Should you focus on cardio? And one of the things that I really disapprove of is what's happening in high school. High school coaches in cross country and track and field are making these kids run 60 miles a week. Why? Because of their own special interests. They want to get them in and out. They only have 4 years, and they want to make a name for themselves as coaches. What kids should do is, honestly, they should lift. They should lift. It's proven that that is the most important thing to develop those neurological patterns.
And do gymnastics.
And I was not done yet, boss. He's so, man, he just doesn't like that lifting. I've made peace with it, by the way. Yes, I have. But what you also need to do is work on skills. You're developing the brain, movement pattern, balance, agility, stability, and strength. Cardio comes when you're more mature. So remember that. Look at how old the marathon runners are today, and the best in the world are in their 30s, late 30s, all right? Strength, skills.
Anybody else? Use the mic, whoever wants to come up and ask. It's good, go ahead.
Hello. No, it's not. It's on? Okay. So, hi, this is Ajinkya from India. So I got inspired 2-3 years back by CrossFit Games. And now I'm looking ahead to be the fittest CrossFit in India. My background is like, I belong to a dance background. And then I got into functional fitness. All these things were new for me. Like this air runner was this was the first time I stood on the air runner, the treadmill. The first time I was sitting on the concept to rower. Kettlebell I was holding for the first time. But holding it for the first time and learning from the best person in the world was more than what I would expect. So all these things were new, but I'm aiming to become, I'm going to give myself at least 2 years, but I want to see myself, I'm seeing myself as a fittest in India. So what would you guys suggest me? What should I, there are so many things I want to learn more, like I have to clean muscle up, which is also required. I have to, snatch, I can't do more than 50 kgs right now. So I should focus on one particular exercise or movement and get better at it first, or directly hire a programmer or make a program for my CrossFit Games. What would you guys suggest?
It's a great question and a very in-depth question. And I think everyone have lots of answers to this. And my biggest suggestion for you is to build the biggest basement of overall fitness as you can. So your general physical preparedness.
That was my answer too.
Yeah, that's going to be the key for you to reach your goals. So general physical preparedness is everything encompassing essentially what this camp is. Focus on the strict skills of gymnastics. Focus on the technical prowess of Olympic weightlifting. Build your structure to get strong and give your body a chance to be able to get strong. Build in the capacity, like you learned in Coach Chris's, work on the mindset from Dawn. Everything that you've done here, work on all those aspects in some fashion over the next 3 to 4 or 5 years. It's going to take time, and you have to give yourself time, because the more you allow your general physical preparedness to grow, then the more you can build upon that for the no more of the dynamic contractions or the applications of CrossFit to be the fittest in India.
I would highly suggest getting a coach or programmer that can help you to be able to learn more about the sport and your body, and so that you gain a greater understanding of where you can begin to place emphasis as you move through obviously becoming more generally prepared, and having a coach guide you, or even numerous coaches guiding you that can work together to help you develop a program, and also to help you learn as an athlete as you're developing, so that you get a greater understanding of yourself and the sport. Critical.
Yeah, for sure. With that programmer, or a team of programmers that can help you, the emphasis absolutely should be what we preach all week, which is mobility, position, and technique, and drill that into your body, into your brain. Above all else, let everything else kind of come as a byproduct over time as you're doing CrossFit workouts, but within those CrossFit workouts and within your skill work, relentlessly maintaining standards, quality standards. Had something to add to that, but I forgot. Dave, you got it? Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
This was back to the question about coaching and coaching younger athletes. Given your experience and going through what you went through as young athletes and adult athletes, when you're coaching someone who you see is very talented and could be a young athlete that, you know, is doing things that's beating all the adults, how do you gauge if they're actually equipped to handle that, or if you're going to burn them out too soon? How do you know when someone's ready to peak?
Yeah, that's a tough question, and for me, I'll try to give a quick answer here because I don't work with a tremendous amount of young athletes, but I think young athlete specifically that's very talented and it's very obvious, the big thing for me is literally treating them like everyone else. You know, if I have a beginner, whether they're talented or not, I'm going to hold them back to an extent and make sure that, just like we were talking about, the base is built to an excessive amount, you know, more than I think there needs to be. We're going to spend more time on mobility, position, and technique work, like I talked about before. I'm going to try to get this kid through, you know, cycles and cycles of squat programs, for example, to build their strength and everything else, and let them develop at a slow rate. You know, my wife working with the kids that she does, and my daughter, like we talked about earlier, she could be lifting more right now. She is talented enough to be lifting more, and we see a lot of kids her age or younger that are talented and are lifting more, but I think there has to be an extent of I don't want to say holding back, but there needs to be an extent of patience, and you know what, let's just be happy with 1 kilo PR instead of letting them do the 10 kilo PR that maybe they're capable of, and let's save another kilo for next month and another kilo for next month. And I think with that, you're going to have more potential for health and longevity and a greater chance of not burning out. And I think Cheryl will probably have something to add here because she was a young champion.
I was just going to add something short, not talk too long, but I do have a lot to say on the subject, but looking back, the biggest mistakes that were made with me was being actively discouraged not to do other things and feeling the energy from everybody else, and suddenly I was expected to do these things. And I enjoyed the lifting, but I enjoyed being with the people. Like, I was a middle school kid, right? You know, and going into high school, but it created like crazy expectation, and it was fun, but after a while, like, there were things about it I thought were fun, but nobody was checking in with me about how I felt about things, or, you know, it really was very much like, you're just gonna go do this. And so being actively discouraged from participating in other sports and being playful in other ways was really devastating, I think. So, you know, going back to what Chad said, is treating that person just like everybody else, because they're not going to be a great champion if they don't have longevity, and that has very much to do with how rewarding it is for them, and if they're into it, and if it's a pursuit they want to do. And sometimes that takes a while. Sometimes they're going to have to try 5 other things, and they'll come back to it, you know. So, yeah, organically, and just like everybody else.
Dave, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, you want to go first?
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, are you referencing like young athletes in the sport of CrossFit, or just young athletes in general? Young athletes in general. I mean, I think what Cheryl and what Chad said is completely spot on, and so I'm not going to elaborate on that. But one thing I would say with young athletes is always play the long game. Always play the long game with them in regards to training and knowing like what you should be pushing or holding back. Always think, how can I set this person up for success down the road, not right now. I think sometimes it gets too intriguing and exciting, like, oh, look at this person at this age, they could already do this, let me push. And sometimes that can be too much. And I think if you just keep in your mindset of playing the long game with them and get them to understand why you're playing the long game, for burnout, to keep them healthy, to put them in a position to be successful for a long amount of time, not just right now, you can do a lot of good.
I think that's a great point, Jay. And I would just say that from our world, there's such a high rate of burnout that happens young because of the demands that are put onto our sport at such a young age. I'm just speaking specifically about gymnastics. I started when I was 6, and that's late. Most girls start 2 and 3 years old. My daughter started at 1 to go into the gym. Not to say that she's on an Olympic path or anything like that, but it has to be fun when you're young. And I can't tell you how many kids I've come across who have had the talent to go to the Olympics at 10 years old and say, you know what, if this person stays on this path, they're going to do some amazing things at a higher level. But they didn't internally want to. It was maybe like Chris's kids who said, I have a talent in me, but it's not a pursuit that I have any interest in. And what's inevitably going to happen is if they don't enjoy it and it's not something that they want to pursue and it's forced upon them, it's going to create a bad relationship between whoever, the coach, the parent, whoever is pushing it on them. And it's going to create a break. It's going to say, you know what, I don't do this because I have a passion for it, a love for it. I don't want to go into the gym and being forced to do it. And at some point, it's not even about the injury side, what we're seeing with younger kids, skill-specific and sport-specific being done at such a young age, but more just the mental challenge that come along with the expectations of saying you're 10 years old and we anticipate you being one of the best in the world. That's a lot to carry when what you really want to do is go and play with your friends and go to maybe your high school prom and all the things that you have to sacrifice to just feel like you have a kid's life. And so from my perspective and from what I've seen, let them enjoy what they're doing. The talent will be a nice combination, but I had zero talent. I was not the talented kid that was picked out and said, you guys are going to follow the path. John Roethlisberger, the owner of the camp, not the most talented guy in the world. It was because we love the sport and we actively wanted to pursue it. And there are going to be more people in that boat than the boat of the 10-year-old that is on the Michael Phelps path at a young age.
I've read a lot of research on this. There is no evidence to say that in your preteen years and early teen years, if you are a specialist in a sport, that gives you an advantage. There's a famous study that was done, I think, year 2015 in the NFL Combine. Only 14% of the people at the NFL Combine exclusively played football in high school. It's about diversity, building skill set, and keeping the brain ready.
I just wanted to add one more thing to that. I think, when everyone else was talking through this, it brought my mind to, a couple extremely talented weightlifters that we have out there, and just going to give a range of their age, maybe 10 to 17, youth athletes, obviously, and very, very young, but so incredibly talented that they're lifting these, amounts of weight that are literally unbelievable, but some of them are doing them with a rounded back from the floor. They're catching their snatch in the bottom, for example, and their feet are really wide and turned out, and their knees are caving into the inside. And I'm not gonna say, oh, this is so dangerous, because weightlifting, whether it's done technically well or not, is a very safe activity. But at the same time, when I see a young kid like that is not maintaining quality and they're maxing out, but yet they get so much praise for that on social media. They literally have hundreds of thousands of followers, and so they're being reinforced. So I think the big thing that I wanted to end with is that these kids that are extremely talented, we want to treat them like everyone else, but they also need extra protection. Like, they need someone to protect them and say, hey, that's not okay. Let's back up and maybe even get off of social media, so that's not there. Unless they're using it in a more of a healthy way. But I think that probably is a big thing that needs to be watched as well.
Okay, I have 2 questions. So my first question is, you're all here, obviously the best of the best in what you do. Who do you look to for mentors? Like coaches, if you're the best of the best, people can get complacent. So who do you look to? What do you read? What do you research? What do you listen to not get complacent in your specialty? So that's my first question. Do you want me to just ask the first question first?
Since I got the mic, I'll take this on first. I'm when I'm writing and creating content, I'm constantly questioning myself, not like in a negative way, but I'm checking to make sure that I'm not starting to make shit up, because I want it to be real and make sure what I'm saying is what I want to come across and what's really happening and what really needs to be taught. So I'm constantly backing that, probably to an excessive amount. I probably need to back off on that a little bit, but I'm always checking and rechecking. And then from there, I mean, honestly, before Power Monkey, there wasn't really anyone I can say that I looked up to and really was trying to learn from other than that research. So it's these guys up here constantly, you know, just coming to camp alone and being around them, and whether I hear any of their content or sit through any of their stations or not, like there's conversations, and those conversations, and I mean, I can think of many conversations with Hinshaw, you know, just for example, just, you know, sitting there talking for hours and learning so much from those conversations, and always learning something different and picking up something new just from the coaches that we're lucky enough to be around 2 times a year here, and then throughout the year if we're able to run into them or not. So it's absolutely these guys here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna real quick agree. This is my favorite time of the year. Twice a year I get to come and I get to learn some amazing things, take some seminars. I speak with Chad actually a lot. We do the USA Weightlifting podcast as well. So and I'm really grateful for that opportunity specifically because I have a tendency not to do a lot of research. Now, I take a lot of information in, but I'm not at the library with my nose in a book and doing the, you know, it's very, very much within the conversations that I have, the social connections that I have with people. And I'm always going like, hey, Chad, when you have an athlete that does this, or what do you do when this happens? And I do the same thing with these folks here. And it's really, really, really important to have your head on a swivel all the time, because you never know where you're going to find value and learn. I was going to say one more thing, but I think I also lost my train of thought. So I'm going to pass the microphone.
I would say the reason that I think we're all sitting up here today is because we're insanely curious individuals and passionate about either fitness in general or the specific area of expertise that we all have. So for me personally, I wake up and I want to read, learn, study, research, and surround myself with other coaches, athletes, and even therapists and people in the psychology world for me that I can feel like I'm learning from every day, and I get excited to listen to a podcast or read a book or even search on social media some of these other coaches and really like dig into what are they doing. I study athletes all day. I go back on film to old CrossFit Games footage and I study athletes' body language. I study their facial expressions, their breathing patterns. And so for me, it's a curiosity and it's a passion, and I get excited about continuing to learn. And I think that that's what enables me to be called a specialist and to be able to sit up here is that I genuinely, truly love it. And I think that we all feel the same way about learning and continuing to learn. And that's what helps us to be able to coach others effectively.
I mean, even if you're a recreational athlete, you should get a coach. The coach is going to give you that knowledge, and you're going to start building confidence around that knowledge. And then you also realize that, you know what, I have a big bunch of holes in that knowledge, and that's going to force you to read scientific literature. That's going to then force you to work out with other people, and through observation, you'll gradually fill in those holes. So for me, what I'm doing now, I mean, I learn from scientific research, I learn from coaches, and I learn from athletes, but now I'm actually into white labeling workouts for other online programs. And in many cases, I do it for free. Why? Because I get not only just 1 or 2 athletes doing a workout, I get thousands, tens of thousands. And imagine collecting that information on those workout results. It validates what I'm doing. So that would be my next step.
I would just say that the collaboration that comes along with us being able to get together has allowed for all of us, I think, to grow as coaches, in the sense that we're not so specific in our own little worlds anymore. Like, if you've been to my station, you know that I make comments about what Chad has taught me and what Chris has taught me and what Cheryl's taught me about. Each of them has created something that has made my gymnastics coaching better. And so the fact that we are all here together and the team continues to expand and we're also open about how we teach and what we teach, I think it makes us better as coaches, but also a more powerful team. Like what we can convey and what we can convey to athletes is more powerful than just the knowledge that we have on our own. So collectively, I think it's created a really powerful way for us to collaborate. And I also wanted to mention that I have a handstand coach. I have somebody that helps me. And I think everyone benefits from a coaching eye and someone that maybe gives you a perspective that is slightly different than your own. I consider him to be one of the best handstand performers in the entire world, and he was amazing gymnast himself, and now he's a circus performer, and he's been tremendously valuable for me to be able to help navigate a world of handstands that I took from gymnastics, but handstands in and of itself is its own little thing. And so, I have somebody that helps me tremendously kind of figure out things that I didn't know.
So I agree with everything they all said. One thing I look to do from a mentorship perspective is at the beginning of the year, I always plan out what my focus is. So I understand kind of what my biggest holes are or what I want to elaborate on. And then I set the path for that year on like one or two main things. And that helps me kind of narrow down the focus of where I want to go for that year. But just starting off was just collecting as much information as I could from everybody that I could, And then honestly, like for me, the first thing I go back to is the staff here. They're the first people that I'll text or call to try to get some information from or question things.
Thanks, everybody. Awesome discussion so far. I have a two-part question. For Dave, approaching the end of Camp 17, what do you wish you knew at the end of Camp 1 and Camp 2 and Camp 3 that you now know? And, more broadly, in an era of virtual coaching, specifically coaching of high-level and competitive athletes or aspiring competitive athletes, I think there's oftentimes an unwillingness on the athlete's part to share how they really feel if they're struggling with a lift, if they're struggling with a movement, if they're struggling with, any type of the pursuits that they're engaged in. How do you foster and encourage that completely transparent and open dialogue where the athlete doesn't feel like they're, in a way, disappointing you as the coach, but also still trying to achieve what it is they set out for in the first place?
Well, I'll answer the first part, and then maybe Chris can get the second part. Just with regards to camp, Camp 17 versus Camp 1, very different things. I don't know who the earliest camper here. Ramel was here yesterday, part of staff. He came to Camp 2 as a camper. Karen, what was your first camp? 4? Okay, so Karen's been here early on. But I think just initially with camp, with me and Chad, and what we were trying to project was an informational week, right? Can we get great minds here to be able to bring better education on the fitness side to the masses in kind of an interesting setting? What I didn't anticipate was the experience side, the fact that the information is critical, but that's not why Karen comes back 11 times. It's because we've created an environment where people feel connected to others even after a couple of days in ways that I had no anticipation of. So I think I would have planned for an experience earlier on, but it happened kind of organically, and it's not something that I would really change very much, but I think I would have had my eyes more open to the idea of it being experiential as well as educational. So for me, camp has turned out the way that I hoped it would, and more than I hoped it would, but it's less about the education and more about the experience.
Yeah, I want to add to that just real quick because, 17 camps in, with my personality and being introverted, I would say that I would have been okay and ran with it being just informational, just get the job done. We're in and out, and, that's it. But I'm so thankful that it became something different because it's changed me at my core and made me a better person. So I'll leave it at that because I'm probably going to start crying here in a second because it's important to me, and it's a special place, an incredibly special place, and I get better every time I'm here.
That's true. So as far as part two, there's a big difference between coaching and programming. Coaching, the coach is right there. They're live. They see opportunities. They see limitations. Programming, you're not there. So if you're not there, how do you actually then provide coaching services? It's the same thing that we say all the time, the athlete ownership piece. The athlete's got to take responsibility when the coach hands off the workout. But in order for the athlete to take that ownership, they have to understand the purpose of the workout, the why behind it. What's the targeted stimulus? What are we going for? And so when they take that ownership, they know what the purpose is and what the reason behind that workout is going to be. Now, as far as limitations, it's true. A lot of athletes like to hide what they're able to do. This is where good coaching comes in. On my side, I already know what you should be able to do. And if they can't hit target personalized paces, there's something else going on. There's some other piece. Programming on my side, it's nothing more than math equations. That's all it is. And all I'm doing is I'm continuing to push the edge of the envelope, just baby steps along the way. And I'm trying to get them to do something that is seemingly impossible, but on paper, it's 100% doable. So when they fail, we try and figure out what was that reason why. Programming, for me, I never love workouts that go perfectly because we're doing it to prepare. We're trying to find weaknesses. We're trying to find limitations. And those limitations is what we attack. Those are the things that's preventing you from reaching your goals faster. So I always look at it as a positive, and I need the athlete to understand that's what we're trying to find.
Yeah, so to piggyback on what Chris was saying, in your regards to dialogue, right, Paul? What is the most important thing between a coach and an athlete? It's trust. It's trust. Trust is the number one most important thing. And if the athlete trusts the coach, then they're going to do what the coach says, but have the trust in them to have open dialogue and understand that they won't be looked upon differently. And if the coach trusts the athlete, then they're going to know that they're going to put their best effort to do the workout, and they're doing the programming, and they're following through with it. And the more that the two work together to build trust over time, the more efficient the dialogue is going to be, and the more effective a program is going to be. And that, to me, is the single most important thing, is trust. And then with trust comes communication, comes dialogue, and then comes effectiveness.
Yeah, that's kind of my area of specialty, but I definitely make sure to try to encourage transparency from the very beginning, and that, I think, is part of the trust thing as well. But if the coach is very proactive about saying, how do you feel? How do you really feel? And again, it's okay not to feel 100% mentally, emotionally, physically. That's normal for an athlete and breaks down some of those barriers to help the athlete become more comfortable being able to state how they're really doing. And I always encourage, like, I can be more effective as a coach if I know how you're really, truly doing. And so the more transparent you can be and open you can be with how you're doing and what's going on in your life that's maybe causing some type of limitation, the more effective that we are going to be as a team. So really, really encouraging that transparency, that vulnerability, that openness, and making sure that's the first thing we talk about before it's like, what did you snatch today, or what was your run? How are you truly doing, and is there anything that's limiting you in some way being able to perform or train the way you want to?
Okay. First, I wanted to thank all you coaches because this camp is incredible. Coming in here, it just exceeded my expectations. It's been mind-blowing amount of information and fundamentals, and it's been great. But having said that, I'm a business owner, and we all have families. We coach. You got to take care of yourself. What do you do to not take on too much and get burnt out? I know, like Dawn said, she takes Sundays off, you know, but there's so much to do, right? I mean, for yourself, for your families, for your athletes, and I
need to listen to this answer.
I do too.
Yeah.
I need somebody else. I don't have the answer.
Good luck with that one.
I'm not good with that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the thing with all of us up here is that we are all like go-getters, like hard chargers, and we want to like just change the world and do everything we can to to give the world what we think we can to make it better. And I went down a lot of paths with this. And for me, it was getting a clearer understanding of what fills my cups, what leads me to feel fulfilled. From a business standpoint, what I feel happy and successful and passionate about with the gym or with Conquer. My family, my wife, my kids, and my health and my own self. And when things come up that are outside of those, allowing myself to say no. That was the first stage, because I used to say yes to everything. Yes, I can do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Yes, of course, I can help with that. And then that would pull me from things that led me to feel fulfilled, right? And I realized that put me in a really bad spot. So that was the first step, is understanding what gives me passion and gives me excitement, and staying with things that allow me to do that. The second part was holding myself accountable for that, right? And my wife does it a lot, where if I start going off track, she pulls me right back on track. Because I don't think there's anything as balanced. There's nothing that's balanced, right? You have to counterbalance. I might, at a certain time of the year, put a little bit more effort and time into the business, and that might pull me away from something else. And I got to understand, okay, now I got to come back and put a little bit more effort here. And it's like this seesaw, but I make sure it's a seesaw, and it's a symphony of things that excite me, that I'm driven towards, you know? And then the third part is really now taking those concepts and dialing that in more and delegating where I can with other stuff. So like with the gym, like I don't want to do payment processing, right? I don't want to do all that little stuff, but it's still part of something I love. So I want to be able to delegate things like that out to where I can still focus on what I think I'm good at, because I'm not good at that stuff, you know? And that's kind of was the third step of fine-tuning the inner workings of the stuff that I'm passionate about.
Yeah, for me, I think it's, I've had to become okay with doing what I can for the day and accepting that. And a big lesson, or what I learned this big lesson from, is the process of writing a book. So I'm maybe about halfway through, and I get frustrated and mad at myself because I feel like I should be done by now. And when I'm sitting there just in a block and can't get a word out, and I may have a day where I sit there for 2 hours and do that, but I have to understand that it's a part of the process. And if I can even sit down for 30 minutes one day and get a sentence out, so that the next time I sit down, I can maybe move on from there, I have to be okay with that. I'm taking one little small step, and the big thing there is just being consistent. And as long as I'm consistent with sitting down and doing something for that book every day, I have to be okay with that. And another part of it is I'm going to make time to work out 3 to 4 days a week. And if any given day that's only 15 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes, I'm going to do something. I can do a 5-minute capacity WOD real quick. But the point is that, if I only have a small amount of time, just not pushing it to the side and say, I don't have time, I'm not going to do it, because it's incredibly important for my mental and physical health. And I think because I'm consistent with that, it makes a big difference. I'm also going to spend time with my family. I'm going to play with my daughter. I'm going to, cook with them and watch TV with them. And as long as those base things are constant, then the work, I can be okay with just doing what I can for the day.
Yeah, I could talk about this all day, but I think that there's a point for all of us where there's healthy striving and then there's unhealthy grasping. And for everybody that's different, but when you start to compromise your own internal peace for chasing stuff, achievements or tasks and constantly doing, there's a point for each of us, I think it becomes unhealthy. And for each of us, that's different, and that's where boundaries, I believe, are incredibly important, because it's helped me to be able to maintain a certain level of inner peace that I can continue then to pursue healthy striving and still 15 years in be just as passionate and show up as the type of coach that I want to be without totally compromising myself because I'm constantly doing or busy and chasing. So that's kind of a deep topic, but I think boundaries are key, and they have been for me, and implementing them and having accountability around them is really important. But I think that I have motivation to continue with boundaries because I have seen and felt the benefits of them.
I will be taking Dawn's suggestions and trying to apply them the best that I can.
Okay, I have a question we've already talked about youth, but let's talk about the other end. You know, teaching old dogs new tricks, okay? So a lot of the people here are now starting to be older, and you see them learn things for the first time, and, you know, that's kind of exciting. But I want to ask you guys, now you're all starting to be old dogs. And so are you still working on new tricks? Is there something, maybe not in your field or something, but you know, there was something inside of you that made you want to achieve what you already have and work on what you already have. But you know, now that potential has been reached or whatever, so are you doing something new, or do you have some goals of your own that you try to work on?
I mean, I've always liked the idea of doing another sport and being a champion at it. Funny story, the judo coaches at the Olympics would always be like, hey, Cheryl, whenever you're done with weightlifting, and I think it was a great idea, and then I would envision myself fighting somebody as big as me, and it was immediately not a good idea. But yeah, nurturing that competitiveness. I think I was telling Dawn in the room last night, I was like, I think I want to take voice training. You know what I mean? I'm doing a lot of commentary, learning how to breathe and manipulate my own voice and do, you know, and I don't know how to read music and I mean singing, the whole thing. It would be a huge challenge, and it sounds frankly like a little bit of fun. I mean, I don't know if anybody is staying in this building over here, but you heard us doing karaoke last night. Alone, but just trying to find joy. And you say all old dogs and new tricks and stuff, but when you know, and I do train a lot of master athletes, and I am one now, but I don't think we're any different. I don't think we're any different than those youth athletes or those, you know what I mean? But just continuing to find joy. But the answer is yes. Like, I'm competitive. So you bring out a board game, and suddenly I wanna crush you, and I don't know why. Hopefully that's a sufficient answer, but I'm curious to hear what everybody else has to say too. You don't have to say anything.
Well, you go first.
So yes, am I competitive? I would say yes to that for sure. I don't know if you guys come to the handstand walking Thursday night challenges, but last night was actually fairly tame. Last camp there were fisticuffs almost thrown. So yes, I think we're all competitive, and I think as CrossFitters and athletes that enjoy pushing ourselves, we all have that in us, right? New stuff, yeah, I'm still trying to better my handstand. I'm still trying to achieve that long goal that I've had for years now. It's still chipping away, and you know, I'm in my 40s now, and I thought, you know, by 40, hopefully I'll have this, and I don't yet, but I have been getting better, and I have been increasing my times, things like that. So I haven't really reached a limit yet, which has been great. But I've actually started doing more kettlebell training after spending some time with AJ and Zach. Pacific Northwest has taught me the importance and the love for running, all things that as a gymnast we just absolutely never did. I ran 76 feet from the end of the vault runway to the vault. Was the furthest I would ever run my entire life. And now I enjoy things because of these guys, the exposure, but I just love doing anything that's going to push me a little bit and make me feel like, you know, I can probably get a little bit better at this if I just put a little time into it. So running and kettlebells are two things that definitely not barbell work. I have no interest in that at all.
So I had a conversation with my mom a few years ago, and she was born in 1937, and she said to me, she said, I think I have one more peak in me. And I'm like, Mom, you're like 84 years old. I mean, what, you got another one? She's like, I think I do. And it got me thinking, like during COVID, I started working on my running just because there was not a whole lot of other things to do, and here you are stuck in Tennessee. And I got down to a 540 mile. And then it got me looking, what is Masters Worlds in the mile? What is that time to get on the podium? It's 5:16. At 165 pounds, my race weight's 150. That's 15 pounds. each pound in a mile is worth 1 second. So now I'm down to 525, and I haven't even started training. So I got to thinking about what my mom said, and like what Cheryl said, like we're competitors in our core. And I got to thinking about it, and it's like, you know what? My problem is being older, my body's more fragile, and it doesn't heal as quick. And I thought about it a lot, and it's like, is it that important, or is my health and being able to do these things and to be able to run and do all with you guys? And that's where my priority lies now. It's not in sitting on the podium. I just don't have that desire. I want to stay healthy. And it's interesting how life changes. That life changes and your perspective comes into play because of age.
That's great, Chris. For me, you know, with everybody up here, like our whole lives were so focused on like our sports, right? So much dedication and sacrifice and grit had to go into that. And as I age with my kids, one thing that's kind of really been brought into my life has been play, which I think I missed for a really long time. And my kids always challenging me to skateboarding or biking or trying to see who can do a flip on trampolines. And, you know, my son came here and he's backflipping the first day and doing front flips all over the place, and baseball and softball and just that, and tag, and that art of play has really been reintroduced into my life, which keeps me young and keeps my body feeling good. But other two new things that I've implemented a lot into my life now has been jiu-jitsu and boxing. I do that like 5 or 6 days a week as well, which has been, I just love being a student as well. I love being able to learn as much as I can, and I can foresee this year coming up, I'm gonna be putting a lot of focus into handstand walking because I've been at camp since day one, and Dave has never picked me to be on his handstand walking team. Yet I always think I do a pretty good job when it's go time. But I'm gonna work on that a lot this year too, and I'm gonna come back a force.
I would say I spent a lot of time in the gym for 15 years, and so for me, what excites me now is doing things like skiing and surfing, adventure racing, and doing more activities outside that I didn't do a lot of because it was so many hours for so many years inside of the gym that now I try to work out in like 20 or 30 minutes in the gym, and the rest of what I do is out and about, and that just is giving me so much more joy and adventure and play, like Jay was saying.
Yeah, I was really sitting here thinking about, do I actually do or try anything other than weightlifting? I'm not sure, but I do a lot of CrossFit, and the thing about that is I'm still trying to figure out how sport-specific Matt Frazier was so good at CrossFit, but I, after over 10 years of CrossFit, still can't breathe any better than I did before. So I don't know what's going on there, but the play part too is big. Jay mentioned skateboarding. You know, I can actually get on a skateboard and roll across the room. I have fell on my butt and my back a couple times, and hurt my wrist as well. But it was all worth it because it's something that I was learning to do with my daughter. If it weren't for her, I would have never thought about getting on a skateboard. She likes basketball now, so I'm playing a lot of basketball with her. We have a hoop in our backyard, and I get to spend, 30 minutes or an hour or hours a day doing drills and playing horse. So those things are incredibly enjoyable for me. Like I did 2 months of sprint workouts not too long ago. And I don't know that I'll ever do anything with that, but just something different. I used to do a little bit of sprinting in some of my weightlifting training when I was just starting, but haven't done anything like that for years. And just to touch something different and something new and see, man, I can do these things in weightlifting. What does that translate to in other activities and other sports? And certainly it doesn't do anything for me in CrossFit, but sprinting might be a little bit different.
Let's talk that through because I really want him to jump on this. He is incredibly powerful. He's explosive. He's got that speed, that strength. That's a 100-meter athlete right there. That's a 100-meter athlete. I'm serious. Like what he should do is he should take his strength, his power output in lifting. Look, Chad, you only get tired when you finish, all right, in 100. Well, that's not true for me, but yeah, I would love to see him do that. It wouldn't be enough for me to get back into track and field, but you know what? I'd come and watch.
So unfortunately, we're going to have to be wrapping this up in a minute or two because we've got the end of the week fun competition coming in. But before Dave and Chad sign us off here, I don't know how many of you guys listen to the podcast regularly, but there's one question that we ask at the end of the podcast, every single one, and I figured this would be the ultimate test right here. So I'm going to ask the audience to raise their hands for which sport or discipline do they prefer, weightlifting or gymnastics. So if you prefer weightlifting, let's see the hands in the air. How many we got? It's like, I count like 3 hands in the air right now. Okay. I'd say it's roughly half. What about gymnastics? How many prefer gymnastics? It's pretty even. I would say that the weightlifters have it by a few hands, but it was close. But Ron over here is a massive human, and his hand probably counts for more than one. So.
An actual running race? All right, I have to be at my hands, and then.
There you go. Yeah.
I will just say one thing on that question. We've had 110 podcasts, 120 podcasts, and the score right now is about 100 to 8, and then some I'm not going to choose. Even Mike said that he wouldn't choose weightlifting.
Exactly.
So I just got to say, maybe you guys, Chad did something right this week to pull him into his corner. So well done, Chad.
Yes, I greatly appreciate that more hands went up for weightlifting. I wasn't sure how that was going to go, but you just made my week. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for the questions, guys. We appreciate the time. We're going to start getting ready for part 2 of this morning.